welcome to my channel, Explicitly Elementary. I've created this as a resource to facilitate students in their at-home learning journey, specifically focusing on intermediate elementary grades, as I'm going to be starting out with a read aloud. I'm going to be doing a chapter or two a day from Chains by Laurie Halse Anderson, maybe more, maybe less, just depending on the chapter length. And then in the description box below, you will find a link for free resources. It will bring you to my TPT store, and through there you can find vocab activities, follow-up questions, and other types of literacy building activities regarding the novel. I usually tell my students that they can have a notebook out, they can take notes on the chapter, write down things they find important, write down different vocab words that they want to look into, or they could just put their head down and listen to the story. If you have this book at home, feel free to follow along. I know that many of us are trying to get used to this new at-home learning thing, and I think that this will be a really great way for us to still engage in literacy and maybe feel like we're still in the classroom a little bit, because I'm going to be treating you just like I would my students. The best time to talk to ghosts is just before the sun comes up. That's when they can hear us true, said Mama. That's when ghosts can answer us. The eastern sky was peach-colored, but a handful of lazy stars still blinked in the west. It was almost time. May I run ahead, sir? I asked. Pastor Weeks sat in front of his squeaky wagon with old Ben next to him, the mule reins loose in his hands. The pine coffin that held Miss Mary Finch, wearing her best dress with her hair washed clean and combed, bounced in the back when the wagon wheels hit a rut. My sister Ruth sat next to the coffin. Ruth was too big to carry. Plus, the pastor knew about her peculiar manner of being, so it was the wagon for her and the road for me. Old Ben looked to the east and gave a little nod. He knew a few things about ghosts, too. Pastor Weeks turned around to talk to Mr. Robert Finch, who rode his horse a few lengths behind the wagon. The child wants to run ahead, the pastor explained to him. She has kin there. Do you give leave for a quick visit? Mr. Robert's mouth tightened like a rope pulled taut. He had showed up a few weeks earlier to visit. Miss Mary Finch, his aunt and only living relation. He looked around her tidy farm, listened to her ragged, wet cough, and moved in. Miss Mary wasn't even cold on her deathbed when he helped himself to the coins in her strong box. He hurried along, burying her too, most improper. He didn't care that the neighbors would want to come around with cakes and platters of cold meat and drink ale to the memory of Miss Finch of 2 Rhode Island. He had to get on with things, he said. I stole a look backwards. Mr. Robert Finch was filled up with trouble from his dirty boots to the brim of his scraggly hat. Please, sir, I said. Go then, he said. But don't tarry. I have much business today. I ran as fast as I could. All right, so let's stop there. I see 2 words that maybe we're not quite sure what they mean. I see scraggly. So I'm going to read the sentence again. Mr. Robert Finch was filled up with trouble from his dirty boots to the brim of his scraggly hat. All right, so let's add that to our vocab list. And then the other word I saw was tarry. So let's read that sentence again. Go then, he said, but don't tarry. I have much business today. Okay, so context clues, that probably means a verb. So let's add that to our vocab list. We have scraggly and tarry. I hurried past the stone fence that surrounded the white graveyard to the split rail fence that marked our ground and stopped outside the gate to pick a handful of chilly violets wet with dew. The morning mist twisted and hung low over the field. No ghosts yet, just ash, trees, and maples lined up in a mournful row. I entered. Mama was buried in the back, her feet to the east, her head to the west. Someday I would pay the stone carver for a proper marker for her name on it. Dinah, wife of Cuff, mother of Isabel and Ruth. For now, there was a wooden cross with a gray rock the size of a dinner plate lying flat on the ground in front of it. We had buried her the year before, when the first roses bloomed. Smallpox is tricky, Miss Mary Finch said to me when Mama died. There's no telling who it'll take. The pox had left Ruth and me with scars like tiny stars scattered on our skin. It took Mama home to our Maker. I looked back at the road. Old Ben had slowed the mules to give me time. I knelt down and set the violets on the grave. It's here, Mama, I whispered. The day you promised, but I need your help. Can you please cross back over just for a little bit? I stared without blinking at the mist, looking for the curve of her back or the silhouette of her head wrapped in a pretty handkerchief. A small flock of robins swooped out of the maple trees. I don't have much time, I told the grass-covered grave. Where do you want us to go? What should we do? The mist swirled between the tall grass and the love-hanging branches. 2 black butterflies danced through a cloud of bugs and disappeared. Chickadees and a barn swallow called overhead. Whoa! Old Ben stopped the wagon next to the open hole near the iron fence, then climbed down and walked to where Nehemiah the gravedigger was waiting. The 2 men reached for the coffin. Please, Mama, I whispered urgently. I need your help. I squinted to the ash grove where the mist was heaviest. No ghosts, nothing. I had been making it like this for near a year. No matter what I said or where the sun and the moon and the stars hung, Mama never answered. Maybe she was angry because I buried her wrong. I heard stories of old country burials with singers and dancers, but I wasn't sure what to do, so we just dug a hole and said a passel of prayers. Maybe Mama's ghost was lost and wandering because I didn't send her home the right way. The men set Miss Mary's coffin on the ground. Mr. Robert got off his horse and said something I couldn't hear. Ruth stayed in the wagon, her bare feet curled up under her skirt and her thumb in her mouth. I reached in the pocket under my apron and took out the oat cake. It was in 2 pieces with honey smeared between them. The smell made my stomach rumble, but I didn't dare nibble. I picked up the flat rock in front of a cross and set the offering in the hollow under it. I put the rock back and sat still, my eyes closed tight to keep the tears inside my head where they belonged. I could smell the honey that had dripped on my hands, the damp ground under me, the salt of the ocean. I could hear cows mooing in a far pasture and bees buzzing in a nearby clover patch. If she would just sing my name just once. Girl! Mr. Robert shouted. You there! Girl! I sniffed, my eyes open, and wiped my face on my sleeve. The sun had popped up in the east like a cork and was burning through the morning mist. The ghosts had all gone to ground. I wouldn't see her today either. He grabbed my arm and pulled me roughly to my feet. I told you to move, Mr. Robert snarled at me. Apologies, sir, I said, wincing in pain. He released me with a shove and pointed to the cemetery where they buried white people. Go pray for her. Go pray for her that owned you, girl. Okay, so that brings us to the end of chapter 1. So, again, I'm going to be putting a link in the description box below for different resources. Essentially, because we have only read 1 chapter, I don't think there's really much that we could do. I'm going to wait till maybe we're at chapter 3 to really start pulling activities for you guys to participate in. But Yeah, so that was chapter 1. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any other requests of different videos that I could be posting, any other subject areas that you would find helpful, please let me know in the comments below, and I would be happy to work on something for you. Thanks so much for watching today's video and following along with our story. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on your post notifications so you will be alerted every time I post a video and when our next chapter is up. Thanks so much and happy learning!